The bustling streets of New York City teemed with the endless energy of ambition and possibility. Amidst the towering skyscrapers and the glittering lights, Isabella navigated the urban landscape, her stride purposeful and confident. At just 28 years old, she had arrived in the city with a singular focus: to climb the social ladder and accumulate the wealth that had always eluded her. Isabella's sharp eyes scanned the crowd, taking in the details of the well-heeled individuals who frequented the exclusive events she had meticulously researched. She observed their mannerisms, the way they carried themselves, the subtle signals that denoted their status and influence. It was a language Isabella was determined to master, for it would be the key to unlocking the doors of the elite circles she so desperately sought to penetrate. With her captivating beauty, quick wit, and natural charm, Isabella deftly navigated the social gauntlet, leveraging every opportunity to make meaningful connections. She attended the most prestigious parties, showcasing her refined tastes and cultivated intellect, ensuring that she caught the attention of the city's movers and shakers. It was at one such event that Isabella first encountered James, a 45-year-old billionaire businessman whose success and influence were the stuff of legend. Tall, handsome, and exuding an aura of quiet power, James commanded the room with his presence, drawing admiring glances from the assembled guests. Isabella, sensing her chance, positioned herself strategically within James' orbit, engaging him in conversation with her keen insights and disarming smile. She listened intently, nodding in all the right places, her eyes conveying a subtle admiration that slowly chipped away at James' initial reserve. As the evening progressed, Isabella's charm and attentiveness had worked their magic. James found himself increasingly drawn to the alluring young woman, captivated by her intelligence and the way she hung on his every word. In that moment, Isabella knew she had gained a foothold, her first step into the world of the elite, a world she was determined to conquer, no matter the cost. With a triumphant glint in her eye, Isabella made her move, ingratiating herself further into James' confidence. The die had been cast, and the stage was set for a clash of ambition, greed, and the fragile bonds of human relationships that would soon unfold. Isabella's calculated charm offensive had paid dividends, as she found herself increasingly drawn into James' inner circle. The 45-year-old billionaire, still grappling with the loneliness that had crept into his life after the passing of his wife, was captivated by the young woman's attentiveness and seductive presence. "You know, James," Isabella said, her voice soft and melodic, "I can't help but admire the way you've built this empire. It's truly impressive." She leaned in slightly, her eyes sparkling with genuine interest. James felt a familiar warmth spread through him as he met Isabella's gaze. "Well, my dear, it's taken a lifetime of dedication and sacrifice," he replied, a hint of pride in his tone. "But I must say, it's always a pleasure to share my experiences with someone as intelligent and engaging as you." Isabella smiled coyly, her hand briefly brushing against James' arm. "I'm honored that you would entrust me with such insights. Perhaps we could continue this conversation over dinner sometime." The subtle touch sent a jolt through James, and he found himself nodding without hesitation. "I would be delighted," he said, the words escaping his lips before he could fully process the implications. And so, the dance between Isabella and James began, a carefully choreographed routine of calculated gestures, intimate conversations, and a deepening sense of connection. Isabella, driven by her ambitions, skillfully maneuvered her way into James' life, becoming a fixture in his daily routine. During their private dinners, Isabella would listen intently, offering insightful commentary and occasional gentle touches that stirred James' emotions. She made him feel heard, understood, and valued, qualities he had sorely missed since the passing of his wife. "You know, James," Isabella said one evening, her hand resting lightly on his, "I can't help but feel a deep connection between us. You've been through so much, and I admire your resilience and determination." James nodded, his eyes reflecting a glimmer of vulnerability. "It's been a lonely road, Isabella, but you've brought a sense of warmth and understanding that I haven't felt in a long time." Isabella leaned in, her voice lowering to a near whisper. "Then let me be the one to walk that road with you, James. I want to be here for you, to support you in any way I can." The words struck a chord within James, and he found himself drawn even closer to this captivating woman. Unbeknownst to him, Isabella's carefully crafted facade had ensnared him, and she was now poised to leverage his trust and affection for her own gain. While Isabella's seduction of James progressed, his wife Penelope could not shake the uneasy feeling that had been growing within her. The 40-year-old woman, once the picture of marital bliss, found herself increasingly troubled by the presence of this young interloper in her husband's life. One afternoon, Penelope confided her concerns to her close friend, Elizabeth, a seasoned 47-year-old socialite who had witnessed such machinations unfold many times before. "Elizabeth, I'm worried about James and his relationship with Isabella," Penelope said, her brow furrowed with concern. "There's something about her that I just can't seem to trust." Elizabeth nodded thoughtfully, her gaze steady. "My dear Penelope, I can understand your unease. These types of situations have a way of unraveling, and often not in the way one expects. But what can I do?" Penelope asked, her hands clasping together tightly. "I don't want to jump to conclusions, but the way she looks at him, the way she's always around, it just doesn't sit right with me." Placing a reassuring hand on Penelope's arm, Elizabeth replied, "The best thing you can do is observe, my dear. Gather as much information as you can, and then confront this Isabella, if need be. But tread carefully. These types of women can be quite cunning." Penelope's eyes widened with a newfound determination. "You're right, Elizabeth. I can't just sit back and let this happen. I need to protect my family, no matter the cost." "That's the spirit, Penelope," Elizabeth said, offering an encouraging smile. "I'll be here to support you, every step of the way." Feeling bolstered by her friend's wisdom and unwavering support, Penelope resolved to delve deeper into the nature of Isabella's relationship with her husband. She would not stand idly by and allow this young woman to infiltrate her life and threaten the very foundation of her marriage. As Penelope left Elizabeth's home, a steely determination had taken root within her. She was prepared to confront the truth, no matter how unpleasant it might be. With a renewed sense of purpose, Penelope set out to uncover the truth behind Isabella's relationship with her husband James. The 40-year-old woman knew that she could no longer ignore the nagging suspicions that had been steadily growing within her. Penelope began by meticulously reviewing the financial records, searching for any discrepancies or unusual transactions that might shed light on Isabella's activities. Her diligence paid off as she uncovered a trail of money transfers and account withdrawals that seemed to coincide with Isabella's increasing presence in James' life. Disturbed by the evidence before her, Penelope dug deeper, scrutinizing the interactions between her husband and this captivating young woman. She observed the way Isabella would linger by James' side, the way her hand would occasionally graze his arm, the subtle glances they would exchange. It was a dance of seduction, and Penelope could no longer deny the reality unfolding before her. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, Penelope's heart sank. Isabella had not only wormed her way into James' affections, but she had also been systematically siphoning off his wealth and resources, using her position as his mistress to further her own ambitious agenda. Penelope's hands trembled with a mixture of anger and betrayal. How could she have been so blind to the machinations of this calculating woman? She had trusted James, and in turn, he had allowed himself to be manipulated by Isabella's charms. Seeking counsel once more, Penelope turned to her trusted friend, Elizabeth. The seasoned socialite listened intently as Penelope recounted her findings, her expression growing more grave with each passing moment. "My dear Penelope, I'm so sorry you've had to endure this," Elizabeth said, her voice laced with empathy. "It's a betrayal of the highest order, and you have every right to be furious." Penelope's eyes glistened with unused tears. "I don't know what to do, Elizabeth. I can't just stand by and let this woman ruin my family." Elizabeth reached across the table and squeezed Penelope's hand reassuringly. "You must confront her, Penelope. Expose her treachery for all to see. Only then can you hope to reclaim what is rightfully yours." Steeling her resolve, Penelope nodded. "You're right. I won't let Isabella take everything from me without a fight. This ends now." With a renewed determination, Penelope prepared to confront the woman who had infiltrated her life and threatened to tear her family apart. The tension in the air was palpable as Penelope marched through the ornate halls of the Vanderbilt mansion, her elegant dress billowing behind her. Isabella, seated in the lavish drawing room, looked up with a coy smile, unaware of the storm that was about to descend upon her. "Isabella," Penelope said, her voice cool and controlled, "we need to talk." Isabella's brow furrowed slightly, sensing the underlying edge in Penelope's tone. "Of course, Penelope. What can I do for you?" she replied, feigning innocence. Penelope's eyes narrowed as she fixed Isabella with a steely gaze. "I know what you've been doing, Isabella. I've seen the evidence of your deception, your calculated attempts to siphon off my husband's wealth and resources." Isabella's facade cracked, and she leaned forward, her expression suddenly hardening. "I'm sure I have no idea what you're talking about," she said, her voice laced with defiance. "Don't play the fool with me, Isabella," Penelope snapped. "I've seen the bank statements, the money transfers. You've been manipulating James, using your position as his mistress to line your own pockets." Isabella's eyes widened momentarily, but she quickly regained her composure. "Mistress? I think you're jumping to conclusions, Penelope. James and I have a purely professional relationship. I'm simply helping him with some business matters." Penelope let out a bitter laugh. "Professional? Don't insult my intelligence, Isabella. I know the truth, and I won't stand idly by while you destroy my family." Sensing the confrontation escalating, Isabella adopted a more conciliatory tone. "Penelope, I understand your concerns, but surely there's been some misunderstanding. I would never do anything to harm James or your family." "Misunderstanding?" Penelope exclaimed, her voice rising. "You've been systematically robbing my husband blind, all while pretending to be his trusted confidant. I've had enough of your lies and deception." Isabella's mask of composure finally shattered, and she leaped to her feet, her eyes blazing with fury. "How dare you accuse me of such things? I have done nothing but support James and help him succeed. If you can't see that, then that's your problem, not mine." The air crackled with tension as the two women faced off, the weight of their confrontation hanging heavy in the room. Penelope refused to back down, her determination fueled by the need to protect her family and expose Isabella's treachery. "This ends now, Isabella," Penelope said, her voice laced with finality. "I will not allow you to continue your schemes any longer. The truth will come out, and when it does, you'll be ruined." Isabella's face contorted with rage, and for a moment, Penelope thought the younger woman might lunge at her. But Isabella, sensing the futility of her position, simply sneered and turned on her heel, storming out of the room, leaving a trail of tension and unanswered questions in her wake. The reverberations of Penelope's confrontation with Isabella had sent shockwaves through the city's elite social circles. Word of the scandal spread like wildfire, casting a dark shadow over the once pristine reputation of the young woman who had so skillfully infiltrated the highest echelons of New York society. Stripped of everything she had achieved through her manipulations, Isabella found herself the target of public scorn and ridicule. The facade of respectability she had so carefully constructed crumbled to dust as the truth of her treachery was laid bare for all to see. Isabella's name became synonymous with greed, deception, and the unbridled ambition that had driven her to such lengths. She was shunned by the very people she had so desperately sought to impress, her carefully cultivated connections severed one by one. As the scandal unfolded, Isabella's public humiliation was complete. She found herself banished from the exclusive events and galas that had once been the centerpiece of her social calendar. Her presence met with disdain and whispered accusations. The weight of her downfall bore heavily upon Isabella, shattering the carefully constructed facade that had been her shield against the harsh realities of the world. The dreams of wealth and status that had once seemed so tantalizingly close now lay in ruins, the ashes of her ambition scattered to the wind. Isabella's once confident stride gave way to a hesitant shuffle as she navigated the city streets, the eyes of the judgmental public burning into her back. The confidence and charm that had served her so well had been stripped away, leaving her exposed and vulnerable. In the solitude of her modest apartment, Isabella would sit, staring into the darkness, haunted by the consequences of her actions. The vision of Penelope's triumphant gaze as she had exposed Isabella's deception would forever be seared into her memory, a constant reminder of the price she had paid for her unbridled greed. The once alluring young woman had been reduced to a mere shadow of her former self, a cautionary tale of the perils of unchecked ambition and the fragility of social standing. Isabella's fall from grace was complete, a stark reminder that the trappings of power and influence could be as fleeting as the wind. As the scandal surrounding Isabella's deception unfolded, James found himself in the throes of a profound personal crisis. The once confident billionaire had been shaken to his core, his world upended by the revelation of his mistress's betrayal. Penelope, his wife of 15 years, had confronted him with the damning evidence, her eyes brimming with a mixture of anger and profound disappointment. "James," Penelope said, her voice trembling with emotion, "how could you let this happen? How could you allow Isabella to manipulate you in this way?" James, his usually stoic demeanor crumbling, could only avert his gaze, the weight of his guilt and shame pressing down upon him. "Penelope, I don't know what to say. I was so blinded by her charm, her attentiveness. I never imagined she could betray me like this." Penelope let out a bitter laugh, her hands clenching into fists at her sides. "Blinded? James, you gave her access to our finances, our resources, everything that we built together. And for what? A pretty face and empty promises." James winced at her words, the truth of them cutting like a knife. "I'm sorry, Penelope. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you, to hurt our family. I was a fool, and I let my guard down." Penelope shook her head, her expression hardening. "Sorry doesn't undo the damage, James. Isabella has robbed us, stolen from us, and you allowed it to happen. How can I ever trust you again?" The anguish in Penelope's voice was palpable, and James felt the weight of his mistakes crushing him. He reached out, his hand trembling, but Penelope recoiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I don't know if I can forgive you, James," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need time to process all of this, to decide if I can ever move past this betrayal." James felt the color drain from his face, the reality of the situation dawning on him. "Penelope, please. I can't lose you, not after everything we've been through." Penelope held up a hand, silencing him. "That's just it, James. After everything we've been through, you've allowed this to happen. I need to decide if I can trust you again, if our marriage can be salvaged." With that, Penelope turned and walked away, leaving James alone in the echoing silence of their once cherished home. The man who had once commanded respect and admiration now found himself adrift, his empire crumbling around him, and the future of his family hanging in the balance. The reverberations of the scandal that had rocked the highest echelons of New York's elite society continued to reverberate long after the initial confrontation. The fallout from Isabella's downfall had left a profound impact on all those involved, forever altering the trajectories of their lives. For Penelope, the betrayal she had endured at the hands of her husband and his mistress had shaken the very foundations of her world. She found herself grappling with a maelstrom of conflicting emotions: the sting of betrayal, the bitterness of disillusionment, and the lingering hope that somehow she could salvage the life she had built with James. Days turned into weeks as Penelope sought solace in the steadfast support of her friend, Elizabeth. The seasoned socialite provided a sounding board, lending a sympathetic ear and offering sage advice as Penelope wrestled with the decision of whether to forgive James or sever their ties permanently. "This is not an easy path, my dear Penelope," Elizabeth said, her voice laced with empathy. "You have every right to be angry, to feel betrayed, but you must also consider the depth of your love for James, the memories you shared, and whether there is still a foundation upon which you can rebuild." Penelope sighed heavily, her fingers tracing the delicate lace of her teacup. "I want to forgive him, Elizabeth. I truly do. But how can I trust him again after all that has happened?" Isabella had him so thoroughly wrapped around her finger. Elizabeth reached across the table, gently placing her hand atop Penelope's. "Trust is not easily regained, but it is not impossible either. James must prove himself worthy of your forgiveness, of your trust. But you must be willing to give him that chance, if you truly wish to salvage your marriage." Penelope's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she considered Elizabeth's words. "I don't know if I have the strength to go through that process again. The pain is still so raw, so overwhelming." "Then take the time you need, my dear," Elizabeth replied, offering a reassuring squeeze. "Healing does not happen overnight, but with patience and a willingness to try, you may find that the path forward becomes clearer." Penelope nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness that had enveloped her life. She would need to summon every ounce of her resolve, but deep within, she knew that the love she shared with James was worth fighting for. As for Isabella, the once alluring social climber found herself cast out from the very circles she had so desperately sought to conquer. Her name had become synonymous with greed and deception, a cautionary tale of the perils of unbridled ambition. Stripped of her wealth and status, Isabella's world had crumbled, leaving her adrift in a city that had once welcomed her with open arms. She watched, helpless, as the doors of opportunity slammed shut one by one, her dreams of grandeur reduced to ashes. Penelope and James, meanwhile, grappled with the arduous task of rebuilding the trust and foundation of their marriage. It was a journey fraught with challenges, but one they were determined to undertake, driven by the belief that the bonds they had forged over the years were stronger than the betrayal that had threatened to tear them apart. The aftermath of the scandal had left an indelible mark on all those involved, a stark reminder that the pursuit of power and wealth could come at a devastating personal cost. But in the midst of the darkness, the glimmer of hope remained, a testament to the enduring nature of love and the resilience of the human spirit. As the dust settled on the scandal that had rocked their lives, Penelope and James found themselves standing at a crossroads, the future of their marriage hanging in the balance. The trust they had once shared had been shattered, and the road to rebuilding it would be arduous and fraught with challenges. Yet, despite the overwhelming obstacles, a glimmer of hope remained. Penelope had made the difficult decision to give James another chance, acknowledging that the depth of their connection was worth the risk of trying to mend the rift between them. "James," Penelope said, her voice soft yet resolute, "I've given this a great deal of thought. I want to try to see if we can find our way back to each other." James, his eyes glistening with a mixture of relief and trepidation, reached out and gently took Penelope's hands in his own. "Penelope, I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I promise you, I will do whatever it takes to earn back your trust. This time, I won't let you down." The path ahead was not an easy one, but Penelope and James were determined to navigate it together. They embarked on a journey of open communication, vulnerability, and a deep examination of the foundations of their relationship. It was a slow and arduous process, but one they were committed to seeing through. As the months passed, Penelope began to see glimpses of the man she had fallen in love with, the man who had once cherished her above all else. James, in turn, demonstrated his unwavering dedication, his actions speaking louder than any words could. Slowly but surely, the cracks in their relationship began to heal, and a newfound appreciation for one another blossomed. Penelope and James found themselves rekindling the spark that had once burned so brightly, their love weathering the storm and emerging stronger than ever before. Isabella, on the other hand, remained a pariah, her dreams of grandeur and social ascendancy reduced to ashes. With no avenues left to pursue her ambitions, she retreated from the public eye, her once vibrant presence a mere shadow of its former self. As for Penelope and James, they emerged from the crucible of their ordeal with a renewed appreciation for the sanctity of their marriage and the power of forgiveness. They had faced the abyss and chosen to embrace the light, their bond forged anew through the fires of adversity. And so, as they stepped into the future, hand in hand, Penelope and James knew that the journey ahead would not be an easy one, but they were determined to face it together, stronger and more resilient than ever before. What do you believe is the most important lesson to be learned from the story of Penelope, James, and Isabella? How might you apply that lesson to your own life, and what challenges have you faced in navigating the complexities of relationships, ambition, and the pursuit of fulfillment? Share your thoughts, your insights, and your own experiences in the comments below. Thank you for joining me on this captivating journey. If you've enjoyed the story, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share this video with others who may find it equally compelling. Your engagement and support are the fuel that keeps this storytelling engine running strong.